All 32 pod once again on a Monday, taping this at about 2:10 in the afternoon, December the 23rd, a couple days from Christmas, week 16, almost in the books. I'm going to share with you something that just happened right before we decided to come on air. Will's dog, it's about, how big is
10
Leo?
pounds. 10 pounds? Yeah.
Crop dusting in the office right now.
So just laid an absolute nuke in this room.
So if you see Will making funny faces, it could be because of his dog Leo. My dog's just been barking since about 7 o'clock this morning, so he's definitely in the crap list. A reminder that this program that won't be talking about dogs and will be talking about football is brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. And Game Time, best tickets, best prices to get you in to see any event you want to see. I thought we'd do something a little bit different today because we're sort of in that area now where we're starting to talk about openings and potential movement, free agency, all these different things. Obviously, plenty of football important too, which we'll talk about as well. But we're going to talk about the game that you were at yesterday. Shocker of all shocks. Rams beat the Jets 19-9? 19-9.
Yeah, 19-9.
Jets scored on their opening drive, a 99-yard piece de resistance. It was beautiful. Down the field, everything great. You're like, uh-oh, the Rams, who definitely have to have this game, just, to keep the momentum rolling. Looks like they're still playing on West Coast time. They're just not into it. No more touchdowns for the Jets the rest of the way. They missed the extra point, kicked one field goal in the game. According to, I believe, Rich Cimini, second time since 1940 that a team didn't punt in a game, but also did not get to 10 points. When you think about how difficult that is to accomplish, it's almost like we're not worthy. Like,
yeah,
I believe you tweeted out, we're all witnessing history. First of all, just a quick encapsulation of what you witnessed yesterday. Just another edition of the Jets being, unfortunately, this year.
No, I'll keep it short on the Jets. I know people want to talk about other stuff and everything like that. I thought Rodgers, the first drive, you watch that and you go, they have to run it back next year because now it's week after week after week. It's starting to look the way we all kind of thought. They moved the ball well. They controlled this game. I think any team that controls the clock that way, Matt Stafford had 110 yards passing. They had the ball forever. The Jets were in the red zone the entire game. The Rams barely touched the football. The only times the Rams scored were when the Jets turned the ball over inside their own 40 on down. So it was like the Jets should have steamrolled them. They had nice moments, but Aaron forced the ball to Devontae and Lazard. He had a killer fumble. And while he played well generally, he just refused to throw Garrett Wilson the football. And the defense was just put in bad spots. The Jets have the worst coaching in the league. It's objectively hilarious. So they lose another one, and it's kind of time to start having the conversation. Is it probably better for Garrett Wilson's future if Rodgers isn't there? Rodgers, as we're recording this on McAfee, just said he's never been released by a teenager, and so that would be quite a humbling experience, hinting at the article we talked about last week. So I think Aaron's going to retire. The more I've thought about it, I think he's going to get 500 touchdowns. He's going to get 17 starts as a 40-year-old off the Achilles. And he leave people kind of in the wanting him stage a little bit, almost in the aspect of I could still do it. And everyone knows I probably could still do it. And I'm not totally done, but there's just not really a spot for him outside of New York. And I guess maybe Vegas opens back up as a spot because of their loss, or because their win. But even then, Devontae's not going to go back with him to Vegas. It just, I don't know. It feels like Aaron maybe is I'm good after kind of accomplishing a lot of the individual goals this year. And the big news, obviously, was Olu Fashanu getting hurt in the fourth quarter for the Jets. He's their new franchise left tackle. He's been fantastic as a rookie. He was amazing yesterday as well. He came off limping and then kind of went to the ground and got carted off immediately. And usually that's horrible, right? It's Achilles, Jones fracture, Liz Frank, one of those type of injuries. From what I've been told, at least it's all testing was, positive in terms of not as bad as they thought. And, it looks like Olu's probably going to just be an IR guy and be ready for OTAs. So overall, the Rams get a much needed win. Seattle loses, Arizona loses. The Rams are absolutely in the driver's seat with a game in hand now. And with Arizona eliminated, do you feel like the Rams probably wrap the division up next weekend?
So you mentioned the idea that Aaron is going to retire, and we were texting back and forth about what I wanted to do today. I felt like at various points over the last month, you started to convince yourself maybe you should run it back with Aaron. He said today on the McAfee show as well, willing to take a pay cut, willing to mentor a rookie. Again, he sort of pointed out he didn't think Carr treated him fairly, and he would like the opportunity to
Yeah.
um, be the kind of guy that can help the next player come in. But as I keep texting you, don't fool yourself, because even if he's capable of runs like this, at this point with his body and how the legs are important to him and how they help make him, besides the arm and the decision making and all those sorts of things, help make him what he was. He's not capable of doing that on a week in, week out basis. So you may get these 2 or 3 week runs where it's great. It's just, I think the idea of it sustaining over a long season is difficult. And of course, again, you just add up the hits. There was that period of time after the Denver game where we're talking about 6 games maybe?
Yeah, and it almost happened yesterday. The game totally changed. He got rolled up on the fumble, and he clearly was hurt and wasn't the same quarterback after that either. So he plays through injury, but his ability to play through injury is probably not the same it used to be. And I think they're just in this – I hope Aaron retires over playing somewhere else. I think – look, I'm not saying it's totally dead that he could come back and there's a world in which, hey, you take a pay cut and the Jets are able to mentor somebody and, like, it works. But if the head coach and GM are not fully on board with it, I just relying on him for 17 again next year is probably asking for a bridge too far.
Yeah, I would agree. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think certainly with his ego, that even if he does retire, I could see him not putting the papers in and just lingering during the course of the season. Yeah, a little. Yeah, exactly. And like, someone, Phil Rivers, right? Like, we're going to just week 15, I got 4 weeks in me. I got 5 weeks in me. If you need me, and maybe we could steal a Super Bowl here, that could certainly be an approach from Aaron. As we know, he does love himself some Aaron. Let's move on to the next one, where I don't know how many people actually watch Lions and Bears, because the Bears are a complete dumpster fire. They've lost 9 in a row now, coaching changes. None of it really seemed to matter for them. Lions win 34-17, their 13th victory of the season. But in this game, what I found incredibly interesting, and something that we've talked about on this pod, you in particular, I believe the last pod we're mentioning this very thing, the Lions offensive coordinator, the hot candidate for this coaching cycle, he and Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, put on an absolute freaking clinic against the Bears. 336 yards passing, 146 yards rushing, 27 first downs, and of course the fake fumble Ruski touchdown pass that they were actually looking at on the sidelines afterwards and laughing like, we really pulled that off. That was beautiful. Felt like a clear message to the brass of the Chicago Bears. Give me Caleb Williams and some of your pieces, and let me tell you something. We can do exactly what I'm doing over here with Detroit with the guys you have over there.
Yeah, I would say I mentioned Ben Johnson earlier in the year because I felt like of all the spots for Ben Johnson, maybe Dallas, maybe Philly, some of the places that are, were up in the air. And I think both, looks like Mike McCarthy. I just want to say this. We're not going to talk about this game. Mike McCarthy's a good football coach. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of tired of this narrative that like he's some bum, that's like some loser lucky to have a job. Because that's the narrative I see nationally all the time. People talk about him like it's a piece of garbage. He's 173 and 110 with a Super Bowl title and multiple title game appearances. Like, what are we doing? And the 2 years with Dallas without Dak, he's going to finish 6-11 and likely 9-8 or 8-9 without a starting quarterback. And he went 12-5 every other year. Is he an elite coach? No, but we talk about Mike Tomlin like he's walks on water. And Mike McCarthy's won more playoff games than Mike Tomlin and has pretty similar records. So I'm not saying they're comparable. I'm just saying.
No, he's someone who is quickly, I think.
He's a good coach. Just good.
Yeah, there's the
tier 2, tier 3,
high floor, low ceiling, right? Like we talk about that with players. We talk about Bo Nix, right? We've talked about a lot, like pretty high floor, but what's the ceiling going to be for this player? Is he already what he is going to be, or something close to it? I feel like when you hire Mike McCarthy, you know what you're going to get, and you're going to get a program that probably gets on the right track and wins some football games. But in January, he's been exposed at times. You had the one run, but there are worse things in the world to be than Mike McCarthy, and have Mike McCarthy as your head coach.
100%. So I just wanted to say that because I tweeted that out last night and got a lot of pushback. Ben Johnson to me is a guy who I think would do well to have pieces in place. Obviously, he's going to have the pick of the litter, and there's an argument to be made as well as Caleb has had a weird rookie year where like the numbers are actually, I think the traditional stats are actually pretty decent. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's, probably going to throw for 4,000 yards and 22 or 23 touchdowns, like 6 picks. Like that's pretty good. And like, but the eye test would tell you there's a lot that needs to be done there, but you've seen moments. It's not like it's been bereft of moments. Ben Johnson, I feel like with Amon-Ra St. Brown, could he use DJ Moore in a lot of similar spaces? Could he get DeAndre Swift to do some of the things, similar to what he's doing in Detroit? And Chicago needs to redo their offensive line a lot, but they've kind of started to. And can Ryan Poles focus on that and like let him get creative and put him in good spots? It's a market that's demanding, but it's rich with tradition, and it makes a lot of sense. The Bears, I just think that's the best spot for him. I've struggled finding the Ben Johnson spot for a while because outside of Chicago, like I said, Philly, Dallas, San Francisco, like if some these spots where like likely nothing was going to change, Chicago is the one where they have real expectations, and it's not going to be the Jets. I would be shocked. So if it's not the Jets, them and the Bears are the two expectation teams, even the Jaguars too. Like if he wants full control, maybe, but to me, I don't know. Bears makes a lot of sense. The one other thing I would say is I don't think this happens, and we're going to get to these guys in a second, but theoretically, could you argue, hey, if he goes to the Giants with like the number 1 pick, would that be an appealing option? But like the Bears already have a guy with a year under his belt that is a way better prospect than any of the guys coming out. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's a huge deal right there, because at least in terms of how we viewed Caleb Williams coming out, and now you have a year of tape of him, which you can go back and study and say, does this work for what I do, or am I smart enough and capable enough to build something around him that plays to his strengths? My one little question about him, and it's kind of interesting because he's been the hot candidate for multiple years, and there was obviously, I think the Commanders put out some sort of negative stuff about him and what he was asking for because he decided he didn't want that job. Like we don't really know what he's all about. Does he want to be in the same division as Detroit? Like I wonder if he wants to go up against Dan and what they built there, and feels any sense of loyalty to them for having him and keeping him. And obviously they're happy to keep him. He's been great. I wonder about that. But to your point about fits, Jacksonville, does he look at Trevor Lawrence? But again, Jacksonville's just been a pit. So I don't know. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to go down there. He will be the hot candidate. Wouldn't it be something if he just said, you know what? I'll run it back again. I'm getting paid well. Like my spot, like my quarterback, like my weapons, Leo.
Yeah, oh boy. Regardless, no, I'm on the same page as you. I think that's one. There's a lot of factors that would go into it, but it does make a lot of sense on paper. A defense that's already got some talent there. Could you hire just a good defensive coordinator and like invest minimally there, invest a lot in the offensive line, which they've already done, and can figure out with Keenan what you do. Can he get the best out of Aroma Dunze, et cetera? I think it makes sense.
You mentioned the Giants. That'll be our next one here. They get absolutely clobbered by the Atlanta Falcons. And Penix was solid, but it wasn't outstanding. His first start, right? 200 plus yards passing. But they scored the first touchdown of the game. The Giants did. Proceeded to give up 34 unanswered, 2 defensive touchdowns. Not that anyone cares about my fantasy football team, but I was playing the Atlanta defense yesterday. It did not help my cause. That is now the 10th straight loss for your New York Football Giants, who have fallen to 2-13 on the season. They currently, were the season to end today, have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And I just have to. It was 8 weeks ago, somewhere around that time, where John Mara said, I'm running it back with these guys. They deserve. We've been quick with the trigger. These guys, a couple of years ago, were in the playoffs. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll deserve another opportunity. And I wonder now, after this, and it's just been ugly. Like, he takes over play calling, but the offense doesn't get any better. And look, there's a talent problem there at quarterback, but just in general, nothing has worked. You've seen the flashes of his temper. He is now 8-24, Brian Daboll, over the last 2 seasons. 17-31-1 in the regular season during his 3 years as head coach of the Giants. Is there any way in hell that he doesn't get bounced at this point? Like, I just don't know how you sell to the fan base. Yeah, you've watched this look horrible. You've wanted to stick needles in your eyes for 2 straight years, but we're gonna do it again. We're gonna give him a chance to pick the quarterback and see what happens.
Yeah, so I would say this. I think there's a chance they're retained. I think it's incredibly stupid because we just talked about the Bears. What's the difference in the Giants and the Bears if they retain Gettleman Gettleman, Shane and Daboll? I'll keep this one quick. Like, what's the difference? I ask you this because if they draft Shedeur, right? First 5-6 weeks, not going well. Daboll's going to get fired, and now Shedeur's on his second head coach in 2 years. If it's all because they never out their quarterback, I get it. But it's not like, yes, this past class has been good. Obviously Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy and a couple of young defensive backs. Sure. But Shane's been horrible in free agency. So it's not like he's never really fully fixed offensive line. It's not like he's full, Andrew Thomas, they paid a bunch of money and he's missed 2 straight years with a foot. Is he going to really be, I don't know, is he ever going to stay healthy? My point being, like, isn't it better to just say, like, fresh start? This new GM's going to come in with Dexter Lawrence, Malik Neighbors, Burns, Thibodeau, some of the young guys, as I mentioned. Not a great roster, but they have some flexibility. They'll have the number 1 overall pick. Can you hit on 2 top 33 picks? Mm-hmm. And you're off to the races. And now the clock's – I just think you should – and this is one of the reasons if you're a Jets fan or the Patriots last year and these different things, like, it's a good thing Jerod Mayo and Drake May, as much as we might not think Mayo might be the guy, maybe not be, whatever, at least they're on the same clock where it's like, okay, you've had the same opportunity together. And we can evaluate who's at fault, who's at not. I don't know. You go into next year, you don't fire Shane, but then it's going well, but like the quarterback's not developing, so it's on the coach, or the quarterback looks good and it's the coach, but the roster sucks, so it's the GM, and now it's like someone's going to come in to work with year 4 Brian Daboll. Like, something about that doesn't make sense to me.
If I'm the Maras and I decide that I am running it back, if I say to myself, nope, I'm going to give him the opportunity to pick the quarterback, then guess what? Then you pretty much marry yourself, if you're being smart, you're marrying yourself to not firing after year 4. He gets at least the full year with the rookie quarterback, if not into year 5. And based on the trajectory of this football team since the first year of Daboll and Shane, by the way, inheriting Gettleman, who was not a great GM by any stretch of the imagination, but inheriting his pieces, you went to the playoffs and then haven't even sniffed the playoffs since. It makes it really, that's a really hard sell, because to your point, if it's Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, whoever is the number 1 pick, the quarterback that they decide, this is the guy we're going to roll with, you're easily into the situation where you're doing what the bad franchises do. You draft the kid, you fire the coach, you fire the OC, you start the program all over again. They don't like the pieces that they have. Oh, we're going to take at least 3 years to build this up. Now, all of a sudden, the rookie quarterback's contract, that's no longer a thing. Now he's on the 5th year op. Like, you just mess up the whole timetable. So you either marry yourself to Daboll and Shane's vision and say, I'm going to ride it out with you guys.
You got to give him at least a year minimum.
Yes. Or you take the finger to the button and you blow it up.
The Jets have been way more patient than the Giants with coaches and GMs. But this feels like a time where it's like, I just don't.
Just because you fired Ben McAdoo after 2 seasons, just because sorry, you did what you did. Don't judge yourself based on your past. What does it look like in the present? Is this the guy to help you get back to where you want to go? And I'm a Daboll guy, but there's no evidence that this thing is working in New York with him and that front office. Prize Picks, absolutely fantastic. Best place to get real money, sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players and up to 6 for a shot to win up to not 100, not 200, but 1,000 times. 1,000 times your cash. Unbelievable. CLNS hooking you up as they always do. Download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, which don't even have to win. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's get to the next one. We spent a lot of time talking about this team because they have been a lot of fun, but they've been a bit roller coastery, and that's the Baltimore Ravens, my preseason pick to win it all. It was on this podcast probably about 3 weeks ago that I declared I'm out. There's no way in hell this team can win 4 games in a row. They just do too many stupid things, penalties, turnovers. The defense hadn't been able to find itself and fix itself. They beat the Steelers on Saturday, 34-17, ending their 4-game slide against the Steelers. They clinched a playoff spot. They are now 10-5, still in second place in the division, though they have the same record as Pittsburgh because of the conference tiebreaker record. But you're asking yourself, Giardi, are you reconsidering? Are you waffling? Are you back on the fence? Might you hop back over the fence and say, it's the Ravens. I'm back, baby. I'm back in. And the answer to that question is, you bet your ass I am. I'm back in. And I'll tell you why I'm back in. I'm back in because, A, Lamar has been awesome. Derrick Henry has been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Their offensive line has figured it out, and that's been a problem for them, and they've sort of now built that continuity up front. But it's the defense, dummy. It's the defense that's turned it around, and there's been one key maneuver here that I don't feel like got a lot of conversation nationally, and It seems like today it's getting pointed out. Kyle Hamilton was moved back to free safety. He's always been, and last year when he made the run for Defensive Player of the Year, he was in the box. He was covering slot guys, but just creating all kinds of havoc, blitzing quarterbacks, stuffing runs. Well, their safeties have been horrible. Marcus Williams, incredibly high paid. He's been benched. And they said, we're trying to fix this thing. We can't fix it. Kyle, you're too good. We're just going to put you back there, let you roam center field, and hope and pray that this is going to work. It's worked. Their defense in the last 4 weeks has played extremely good football, and Kyle Hamilton is a massive reason why. The communication issues that plagued them, they seem to have disappeared. The spacing issues, a lot of guys running free in those first 11 weeks, that doesn't seem to be as much of an issue. So, yes, I am absolutely, positively back on board quickly. They have the second best DVOA since week 11, behind only the Green Bay Packers.
Agreed. If I wanted to be a dick, I would tell you they played the Steelers
twice. Be a dick.
The Steelers twice.
Dick.
The Eagles in really bad weather, in which they lost. The Giants and the Chargers, which they still give up 20+, who lost Gus Edwards 2 seconds in the game, and Quentin Johnson couldn't catch a cold. I think that the Ravens are extremely dangerous. I told you when you preview this that I felt like this was a statement, like back-to-back weeks of like, hey, playoff teams, we can look like more of ourselves. I don't think anyone wants to see the Ravens in the playoffs because Lamar is that good and Derrick Henry is that frustrating to play against. And they're really good. Like Kyle Hamilton's I picked him as Defensive Player of the Year. Like I'm very high on them. I think this said a little bit more about the Steelers. I think they, without George Pickens, cannot beat anybody. I mean, I guess not anybody. That's. I just don't think they're beating. I don't think they're beating top level playoff teams that they need to score 20+ with without Pickens consistently. And I think Russ made some really bad decisions in this game. The number one thing that with this game that I couldn't believe is not the pick six. It is what it is. Mike, he's running there, scrambling. I think it was 17-7 at the time. Or maybe was it 7-7 at the time? Whatever it was. My brain, like too many games. It was either 7-7 or 17-7, whatever it was. They were losing, but like going down to score. Still really much in the ball game. And instead of sliding, instead of trying to make a guy miss, instead of taking the easier angle, he like ran into a defender and the ball flies out. And it's like, okay.
Inside the 5-yard line.
Inside the 5-yard line. Like, here's the thing, Russ, is that part of the reason he's played well for them and they've won games and Fields, the lack of turnovers, don't make the mistakes. Well, unfortunately, it feels like in this game and some of the games they've lost, like he's not great. And he's kind of back to Russ the last couple of years, and they can't overcome that. This is a team that needs to win, generally speaking. They'd like to win 23-17 with a rushing touchdown, a George Pickens or Freiermuth touchdown, and the defense setting up in field position and Boswell just knocking in kicks. They're not beating anybody 34-17 consistently in the playoffs, I don't think. So I'm a little more concerned on – I think teams – in the AFC right now, you want to play Houston or Pittsburgh. I think that's like I think Cincinnati might make the playoffs, and I don't want to see Cincinnati. I know their defense sucks, but I'd have no interest in seeing Burrow and Chase and Higgins
Yep.
for 4 quarters. I have no interest in seeing Lamar for 4 quarters, Mahomes, Allen, etc. Houston without now,
Tank Tail and top of stuff on Diggs. Yeah.
without Tank and Diggs and Stroud's made some. He continues to turn the football over.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to play them, but they don't scare you in Pittsburgh. Same thing. Like, yeah, it's Mike Tomlin, the big bad Steelers and stuff, and I get it, but I'm also like, I don't know. Like, I trust any of those other quarterbacks more than I trust Russell Wilson at this point in his career.
It's interesting, real quick on the Steelers, and you mentioned the Pickens factor, and obviously he's been out for weeks now with the hamstring, and it feels like they're just making sure that he is as good to go as can possibly be.
Yeah, he was bouncing around pregame. Yeah. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did. And look, he's been good for them. He and Russell have had a connection. They've been made some plays downfield. But here's my thing. If you offensively have to depend on that guy who, as you well know, has not proven to be a dependable player during his brief run in the NFL, then you're probably screwed anyways. That's the case. But I think the big takeaway from this whole segment of Ravens and Steelers is that you were a dick and you didn't come back on board with me and my Ravens. And that's fine. That's fine. Be that way. Let's hear from Factor, which, all right, I've chowed all my meals. I got to get a new box. Notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists, they aren't. Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like routine or you enjoy mixing things up, Factor has you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options you can add to the box, like keto cookies, the pressed juices, again, I'll say it, the ginger, fantastic, and smoothies. Don't let shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. And again, they have preferences for you. You want maximize protein intake, manage your calories, avoid meat, well-balanced. You make those options. They send you the food. So you just go to factormeals.com/50Giardi. That's Giardi, and use the code 50Giardi to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50Giardi at factormeals.com/50Giardi to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. So I wanted to pose this question to you because the bottom of the league has been, I don't know, maybe it's because the Patriots have now lived here for the last couple of years, but for me, it feels like the bottom of the league is particularly odorous. Like there's a bunch of just we're not even talking like if you blew all these teams up and started over, they might be better off than having to build with what they have right now. But I wanted to ask you, I'm giving you 6 teams here. These are the top 6 teams in Tankathon for the #1 pick in the draft. And that's, of course, the Giants, who are 2-13. They're #1. Patriots at #2. And all these teams, by the way, from 2 through 6 are 3-12. So Patriots at 2, Jags at 3, Titans at 4, Browns at 5, sneaky Browns at 5, and the Raiders at 6. We've talked about the Giants, so we put them off to the side. Of the rest of that group, who has been, in your mind, the biggest disaster this season?
Ooh.
It's a tough one because they all have strong qualifications.
I'll go Jacksonville. They're a team that was supposed to be a playoff team. I think me and you are lower on them than the consensus, but a Super Bowl winning coach, a quarterback who just got paid, a team that's been in the playoffs, a team that's won a playoff game. I felt like healthy. They were the #1 seed last year until they weren't, right? Until Trevor.
Yeah, they were 8-3, and then
they're hosting Cincinnati.
Yep.
Yeah, and like it was whatever. So I think Jacksonville, Vegas, Tennessee to me, New England, the Giants were all supposed to primarily not be good. Them in Cleveland both, I think, are just, I don't know. They're coaches you wouldn't expect and quarterbacks. Well, I think maybe we expected quarterback, but roster-wise, it's just both teams have totally bottomed out here.
Yeah, I looked at the Raiders and thought, and I think we had the conversation when we previewed it, are they in Denver in similar states of where they're, both had some good pieces on defense. You thought okay, but do they have the quarterback? How's this thing going to work offensively? The Raiders, obviously, they don't have a quarterback. They've had no real offense to speak of all year except for Brock Bowers. Guys getting hurt left and right. The coach is not any good. They never should have re-upped him, but they did. They went along with the players who were very pro Antonio Pierce. How's that working out for you? at 3-12, probably looking at having to get rid of him at the end of the season. On the Titans front, we talked about them as well. I did not like them. I believe when I did the full schedule play out, I had them at 3-14. And I was like, that can't be like, how did I? And then I went back and looked at it. I was like, no, that's you went down and you're like, nope, I don't like them there. I don't like them there. That roster makes no sense. The wrong guy got fired. Rand Carthon might not be good at his job. He kept his job. Mike Vrabel was good at his job. He's out. I don't know if Brian Callahan's a good coach or not. I do know that he went on a 2-minute rant with a lot of curse words about his team being called soft, and then they proceeded to get absolutely bulldozed by Indianapolis. And I know it finished 38-30, but that game was not close. It never was close. Jonathan Taylor rushed for 200 yards, basically. Like, it was disgusting. What was happening there? Having covered them a bunch for the NFL Network, I'm friends with a lot of the guys on the beat, and following their tweets and just being like, these poor bastards. Like, at least they went from a level of competent football with Vrabel, even at the end, to this. This is gross.
Yeah, so, they also just think quarterback's a mess. I don't know, like, what's the redeeming quality? They're tough. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the roster build, the paying guys like Ridley and even Hopkins the year before where they traded. Like, there's like no middle class there. They're a mess.
Oh my God. Even Snead, like,
right.
That has not aged well
terrible,
so far.
Right? I mean, he's barely played for them this year. One quick note on the Patriots, who lost 24-21 to the Bills. They were up 14-0, played their best quarter and a half of football, put together their two best back-to-back drives offensively this season to start the game. Perfect touchdown pass from Drake May to Kayshon Boutte down the sideline. Then a 16-play, 91-yard drive to go up 14-0 in Orchard Park. Like, it was like, okay, this was the game to empty the tank, because this was the game if Jerod Mayo was going to make one final case for, I still belong here and I should be the coach next year.
Yeah.
We're going to beat Buffalo or we're going to play Buffalo close. Well, 3 turnovers in the second half, a late touchdown made it 24-21. Just hearing him talk after the game, hearing him talk today in our media availability, he sounds like a guy who knows he's coming back. And I expect there will be changes around him, but I expect him to be back for year 2. So Patriot fans who are hoping and praying, get ready for that. Obviously, there was an additional boost for him yesterday, and Drake May being almost angry that this conversation is swirled around his head coach and his coordinator. I don't know that he can save his coordinator's job, but I'm not saying he's saving his job by speaking out for Mayo, but he called it BS and says they want to win, we want to win, we're playing hard for them. And they did play hard. They're just not very good, and they got really conservative in the fourth quarter, and that made no sense. So there you go. We got one more hit to do here.
Drake May's a dude.
He is the dude. There's no question he's a dude.
I'm not sure I wouldn't take him 1-1 if I redid it all over again.
Yep, I was sort of pro that going into it. The one thing I will say, and again, they're a bad team, so this happens with bad teams, 7 straight games with at least 1 interception, killer interception in the end zone. I think they were down 17-14 at the point. Needed points there. Instead, throws it to the pylon. He threw off his back foot under pressure. The ball was never going to get to the corner of the end zone, which is where he said he was trying to throw it to. And that was a killer to not get points there. And he's now, I believe it's the longest active streak in the NFL, and it's the most interceptions by a rookie quarterback since Blake Bortles. Bortles had a streak of 8 straight. So just I'm hitting you with numbers there. Look, great time of year, right? We got bowl games, we got college playoffs, although those games are all duds this week. And if you want to go to any of these things, Game Time Picks, it's the place to go. Game Time filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Will's used them. I've used them. Yankees games, Red Sox games, Celtics games. Celtics game coming up. So you just download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. We'll get out on this. Do we have a sneaky dark horse MVP candidate who maybe shouldn't even be sneaky anymore? And Josh Allen, the clear front runner, and probably remains that way, but only threw for 154 yards against the Patriots, Hurt his
Had one arm punt.
Yes,
just in
the
case.
one arm punt in the end zone, but thank you, Marte Mapu, for deciding to run it out and getting tackled at the half-yard line. That's neither here nor there. The candidate that I mentioned is someone that I know you're fond of.
Oh, yeah.
It's Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold, who led a game-winning drive again yesterday in a 27-24 victory over Seattle in Seattle. That's his 5th game-winning drive of the year, second only to Patrick Mahomes, who has 7 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter this year. Darnold was 22 of 35, 246, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Since showing some signs of weakness about 6 to 8 weeks ago, he has gone on a ridiculous run, 15 touchdown passes, 1 interception. The Vikings are not losing football games. They've won all those games. It's his 12th game with a passer rating over 100. That's tied for Lamar Jackson for the most in the league. Are we not giving Sam Darnold enough credit, and should he be a legitimate, screw the dark horse thing, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, should they all be in the same bowl for this year?
I would say if I had an MVP vote, controversial maybe, I would say I'd go, and probably will be Allen, although I think Lamar and Burrow have every right to feel like they could win it. I'd probably go Allen, Burrow, Lamar, Saquon, Darnold. Probably my top 5. I understand Sam has the coach, and he's got some of the receivers, and can do the whole thing. There's a good chance they could be the 1 seed. He's likely going to throw for somewhere around 37 or 38 touchdowns, 4,000 plus yards, 100 plus quarterback rating. Turnovers are not been a problem. He's got a couple rushing as well. He's letting comeback drives, these huge throws. I don't know. If any other team is 13-2, their quarterback playing with this, it's not like it's just the eye test. It's a Purdy thing. Hey, they're winning. No, not for nothing. He's putting up really nuts numbers as well. So credit to Sam. He's going to get paid by someone in this offseason. Still 27 years old. A guy who the biggest flaw in him was his football IQ in terms of reading defenses and things coming out of college with turnovers. He's finally stringing together games and got his confidence back where it's at least limited, and the talent's coming out, and it's been really fun to see.
Yeah, you know what? And we'll talk about this more in depth as we get into the offseason, but Minnesota may hold the key to all this quarterback movement that could and will happen in the offseason, depending on what they decide to do with Darnold. And for Sam's, I think Sam's best case is that they keep him. He's finally found a home, and there's a good marriage here. And I know JJ McCarthy looms, although he did, he had the second cleanup process on the knee that he hurt in the preseason. Supposedly not going to impact his availability for the offseason stuff. Yeah. But I don't know how unless he falls on his face here the last couple of weeks and in the playoffs. Man, I would want to at least slap.
It's also hard to tell that locker room, hey.
Right.
This guy helped lead you here, and then change it up. It's
and there are people that felt like McCarthy was going to be a little bit of a project, and he hasn't been able to do any on-field work since August. So yeah, great. He can study, he can watch Sam play, he can sit in all the meetings, he can do all these things, but you need the physical reps too. So for someone who was a little bit raw at quarterback, those physical reps are critical. You just hear the way, for instance, Joe Milton, the way the Patriots talk about Joe Milton and where Joe Milton has gone this year. Now, whether that amounts to anything and he ends up being a real quarterback in this league, I don't know. Probably not. But guys talk about him and dude, he's gotten a lot better. Because he's taken all the scout team reps, he's getting other he's just out there. He's doing a lot of stuff and playing a lot of football and being coached hard in that regard. And they say it's made a difference. So we'll see if McCarthy can do that. Obviously, with a bit better pedigree in terms of their draft position. That's going to do it for this edition of the All 32. Remember to subscribe, listen, rate, review, do the whole thing. Tell your friends, all that stuff. We appreciate you. We'll figure out the end of the week because it's obviously holidays and craziness happening, and the Patriots on a short week this week as they play the Saturday game, a standalone Saturday game, which they did not want, but they get it anyways. He is Will Parkinson. I am Mike Giardi. We'll talk to you again soon.